Arguably the most difficult lineup to predict at Euro 2024. This is my Italy 11 that I think will start against Albania. Welcome to the Gianni Battici YouTube show. Hope you guys are well. Before we see my 11, why do we think Italy is so difficult to predict? Well, a mixture of things. They've got a new manager, so we don't know too much about how Spalletti wants to set the team up. We've seen him tinker a lot in his time in charge, which is under a year. It's a young team with loads of breakthrough players that could feature. And it's a team full of very good players, but perhaps not many elite players. Therefore, the amount of good players they've got is actually a ton. And with that in mind, they're at a similar level. So there's a ton of arguments, pros and cons to different teams, but I think I've cracked it. This is the team I think we will see against Albania. Before we look at the 11, though, this is the formation I think we're going to see. We're going to see a back three. Now, when Spalletti took over, the first 6 games were a 4-3-3. We then had 2 friendlies in March, and in both those games, he lined up in a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-3. He went with a back three and wing backs. This is a system that Inter Milan have used so well, and there are a fair few Inter Milan players in this squad. But then Spalletti, as he always does, he threw a spanner in the works. The 2 friendly games before the Euros in the last week, we saw Italy play Turkey. And what did Spalletti do? He went and lined Italy up with a 4-3-3. It made no sense. Like, this is a team that looked good in the spring playing with a back three. We thought Spalletti was moving forward. No, he went to a back four. That is the only system Spalletti has ever really used, by the way, 4-3-3. When you look at his time at Napoli and Roma, Inter. But it didn't work against Turkey. Italy looked flat. It was a bore draw. And then a couple of days ago, Italy played Bosnia in the last warm-up game before the Euros. Thankfully, Spalletti went to a back three. They won 1-0. They looked good throughout, better throughout. And we think we've got signs of improvement. I think they'll go with a back three versus Albania. And if that works, he'll stick with it. If it doesn't, he might keep chopping and changing. But with a back three, we're looking at 3 centre-backs. We're looking at very high wing-backs. And it's almost like a front 5, back 5. This is similar to what Thomas Tuchel played at Chelsea, I remember. It was like, we've got these great wing-backs, Reece James and Ben Chilwell, we're going to use them. And in Italy's case, they've got the likes of DiMarco down the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, Liorenzo or Cambiaso, and they will attack at will. And you'll see 2 deep midfielders. This allows 5 men behind those that are attacking. So the wing backs are really given license. They're not playing wing back with 1 DM, they're playing wing back with 2. So I think here we'll see Jorginho and Cristante, or Jorginho and Fagioli. We'll have a look at my predicted 11 in a second, both controlling the game from the middle of the park. And then you've got the front 5, the wing backs, almost like 2 number 10s, and then you've got the number 9. Really, really exciting, this shape. Now, this was the shape. This is a screen grab from my friend on Twitter. This was the shape we saw against Bosnia, and it really, really worked. Italy did do well in the half spaces, and Spalletti was recorded post-match saying how well Italy looked between the lines. And that's what he wants. He wants high tempo, but he wants Italy picking the ball up between the lines and making things happen. And he feels like they can do that in this shape, right? So if this is the shape, what's the lineup? And if you're playing fantasy, by the way, the league code is on screen. Do join my league code. But also, I'm going to show you the fantasy prices and give my best fantasy options. Guys, please do hit that like button and subscribe to the video. So how are they lining up? Well, let's start from the top. Going into the tournament, many felt Retegui would start. Some thought Raspadori would, which was strange. But for me, it was always going to be Scamacca. Scamacca played against Bosnia, looked good, missed a couple of chances, but he links to play really well. Spalletti said he enjoyed his hold-up play, his 1-2s. Scamacca's going to get the nod. He's a much better profile for what Spalletti wants, I think, than Retegui. He doesn't offer the same sort of hold-up play. So Scamacca comes in. He hasn't done it really in an Italy shirt before, but he's had a brilliant end of the season. And at 7 million, he's straight in my fantasy team against Albania. I'm backing him to get chances, and I think he'll combine well with Chiesa in that front too. So these 2 players are locked for me. The third player in attack, I mean, I say in attack, is box to box, and that's Barella. Barella is flagged. Barella is highly, highly doubtful. He hasn't featured in the warm-up games. If he doesn't play, it will be either Pellegrini or Frattesi. Frattesi got a goal against Bosnia, took it really well, and he scored a few in qualifying. But Pellegrini's been given the number 10 shirt. Spalletti has said a lot about Pellegrini, how he's going to be his number 10. I think it'll be Pellegrini if it's not Barella. But that is obviously a shirt up for grabs if Barella is out. If Barella's fit, first name on the team sheet. So the front three, I think, kind of picks itself. But then as we go into the midfield and the back line, this is where it really gets tricky. And I would argue Italy genuinely are the hardest team to predict at the Euros in terms of starting 11. There's very few I can think of that are more difficult than this. But I think I have cracked it. So how are they going to shape up in midfield? And when I say midfield, this includes the wing back. So it becomes really a big talking point on the right-hand side. But let's start on the left. Fede Di Marco is absolutely nailed. He's only 5 million, the best Italy asset in the fantasy game. Jorginho is nailed. But alongside Jorginho, originally when we went into the tournament, many thought we'd see a Jorginho alongside a Barella and a Pellegrini. I think it's going to be a little bit more reserved than that. I think Spalletti wants to go with 2 deep-lying midfielders. And that then allows, as I mentioned earlier, the wing-backs to really get forward. So if he goes with 2 deep-lying midfielders, you can't really go Pellegrini, Barella and Jorginho. It's just too attacking. So I think we're going to see Jorginho alongside Cristante. Now, I don't really want Cristante starting. Many fans that have seen the warm-up games will say Fagioli was Italy's standout player across the 2 games. He's obviously been banned all season, so he's not been in a Juventus shirt, but he offers something a little bit different. He's got brilliant time and space on the ball. He always passes forward. He's got the guile. Alongside Jorginho, they complement each other really well. Cristante is a little bit more old school, technically not as good. His passing won't be anywhere near as good, but maybe in the tackle and for interceptions, blocks, maybe slightly edges it. I think he'll go for Cristante's experience, but I would like to see Fagioli in there. So it'll be one of the 2 alongside Jorginho. I'm going to give a different version of this 11 in just a sec, which is committing to just 11 players. There's going to be no forward slashes X or Y, but just to run through what the shape will look like, this certainly helps. And then on the right-hand side, this is the big question. The question here is, where does Liorenzo play? If Liorenzo plays right wing back, then Darmian plays centre back. If Liorenzo plays right centre back, which I think he might do, then Cambiaso probably plays right wing back. Now, Cambiaso is a really interesting option because this is a kid that's barely got any Italy caps. He's played well for Juventus this season, but he can play left, he can play right, he can play fullback, he can play wing back, and he can play as a part of a front 3. Now, when he came on against Turkey, Cambiaso played 45 minutes as a front 3 right-sided player. And then against Bosnia, he played 90 minutes in the Di Marco role on the left-hand side as a left wing back. I think he could be the starting right wing back, and he's 4 million in the fantasy game. Those that priced for this game did not think he'd be a starter. I think he's got a very good chance. I'm going to give you percentage chances of all of these players in just a second. So Cambiaso in the friendly's got a 45 and a 90. Di Lorenzo got a 90 and a 0. Di Lorenzo played at the right back in 4, which we know is where Di Lorenzo likes to play. That's where he played under Spalletti. Spalletti's captain at Napoli in part. And he played in a flat back 4 as a right back. Now, where does Di Lorenzo fit in this system, in this shape? Is he a right-sided centre back or is he a wing back? I don't think Italy know. I don't think Spalletti knows. Maybe Di Lorenzo has a preference, but I think we might see him at right centre back. He is good going forward, but he's also very sound defensively. So looking at their minutes, Darmian got 0 against Turkey, and then he got 90 against Bosnia. Di Lorenzo got the opposite to that, and Cambiaso got an additional 45. I just wonder if Cambiaso has played himself into this team. And then the back 3. Let's assume it's Cambiaso right wing back. That's Di Lorenzo then at right centre back instead of Darmian. Buongiorno, I think, has now got the spot, and this is purely based on the Acerbi is injured. He's out the tournament. Scalvini is out the mix, and I think Buongiorno looks like he's set for the 4.5 million spot in your back lines. The Torino man's had a brilliant season. He's featured under Spalletti in the most recent game in this position against Bosnia. I think he played 90 in the middle of the back 3. And I think he'll work really nicely with Bastoni to his left. Calafiori's done amazingly well and plays left centre-back as well. But Bastoni is the standout centre-back in the Italian team. Bastoni crosses like a winger. He's arguably the best centre-back in Serie A for his age. What is he, 22, 23? 5.5 million. I expect a couple of assists for Bastoni, or certainly chances created. He's really good from those deep crosses, and he'll be looking for Scamacca with his aerial ability. So Bastoni is nailed. Buongiorno, I think, is nailed. And Liorenzo is nailed in the team, whether he's at right centre-back or right wing-back. And then Donnarumma, we don't need to discuss. So these are the guys I'm going for. But let's make it a little bit trickier, shall we? Let's commit to 11 players. Let's really hang my hat on this one, because I give you predicted 11s with different shapes and different combinations. That's not really committing to anything. If you want to know who I think starts versus Albania, by the way, we might have a better indication on Friday. You do get leaks for this Italy team. Like Italy, I say leaks. Italian managers are pretty transparent over the years, and in press conferences, they don't play too many mind games. So we could get some news before the Friday deadline. Remember, there'll be press conferences on the Friday because Italy play on the Saturday. The deadline for the Euros game is Friday. So let's commit, shall we? These are the 11 that I'm going for. If I was pushed, all the players I mentioned with just one name on, you know I'm going for them. The locked guys, Scamacca, Chiesa, Dimarco, Jorginho, the back three and Donnarumma. I think Cristante might get the nod over Fagioli. Really hope he doesn't. But I think he might, just for the experience. And I think Cambiaso gets the nod over Darmian. And that's what it comes down to. It's Cambiaso or Darmian, despite them playing different roles. Darmian won't play right wing back. Darmian will play right centre back. But it's one or the other, because I feel like Liorenzo is pretty nailed. So this is the 11 that I think we will have. In terms of fantasy assets, I'm going to put percentage chance on these players in just a second. In terms of fantasy assets, where do we sit? If I was to rank them for their value or for guys featuring in my team, I would go double defense versus Albania. So for me, it's Dimarco is a lock, the #1 pick in the game for Italy. And then I would complement him with Cambiaso or Buongiorno because of the price. Cambiaso, if you're willing to take the risk on his minutes. And then I'd rank Scamacca as the third best asset and probably Chiesa as the fourth. Just because Scamacca is slightly cheaper. Jorginho should be on penalties. He has missed his last 4 for Italy, though. We don't know. Look, when you take Jorginho out of the equation, none of these guys take penalties for their clubs. Although the likes of Scamacca and Dimarco have scored and got fairly good penalty records. So that's where we're at. Guys, do you fancy hitting those buttons before I give you a percentage chance? So if you're new around here, please do consider hitting that subscribe button. And if you fancy hitting the like button, that'd be awesome too. If you've got any questions, by the way, drop them in the comments. So let's have a look. Percentage chance. Percentage chances of these guys starting, because I'm getting so many questions on Twitter. That's why I'm making this video. Rather than respond to every question on Twitter, I'm just going to send them this link about the Italy lineup and who I think will start. I've sent this tweet out to a few people. So I think it'll be a 3-5-2, as I mentioned. It will be Dimarco at 100%, if fit, right? Bastoni 100% if fit. Liorenzo, I've gone 95, but you could argue that should be 100. Like, I'm pretty sure Liorenzo is nailed. And Buongiorno is really close to being nailed, but you probably can't use that term at 85%. And then this is where it gets interesting, because it's not a back 5, but there's 5 defenders that will be picked. And 4 of them are fairly nailed, the top 4. And then it's one or the other 2. It's Cambiaso or it's Darmian. And this is all dependent on where does Liorenzo play, as I mentioned. I've gone Cambiaso at 60, Darmian at 50. It's a bit of a coin toss. It does, however, mean there are other defenders still in the mix, because whilst I rate them lower than 50%, they're not out the equation completely. Mancini can play as the middle 3 centre-back instead of Buongiorno. Mancini can also play right centre-back. For example, if he wants to play Dimarco, Liorenzo on the right, wing back, and he doesn't fancy Darmian, he could go Mancini right centre back. Bellanova can play as a wing back on the right instead of Cambiaso. And Calafiori is a brilliant option, but he's left footed and he plays left centre back, same as Italy's best defender, Bastoni. So I'd rate these 3 guys they're probably all around the 20-30% mark. But they're not out the mix altogether. This is what makes Italy and predicting Italy so difficult. So to go back to it, this is the team I think we will see. If you guys fancy, by the way, becoming channel members, please do consider it. You can hit the word join for extra content, extra videos, WhatsApp group, all that jazz. But back to the team. This is why I think the team is so interesting, because we don't know about so many moving parts of it, and we don't know about the formation. But to go back to that original slide, this is the shape that I think could be really impressive for Italy at the Euros. Now, this is a system this team isn't used to. When we look at Mancini's Italy, for example, it was a bit lopsided. It was a back four, but we saw Spinazzola bombing on the left and Liorenzo was the right back, would tuck in. But we weren't really used to seeing a front five, back five. But Italy's midfield definitely lacks something with no Verratti. And that's what who Jorginho played alongside for so long in the Italy shirt. In the last Euros, that midfield three of Barella, Verratti and Jorginho had everything and had so much balance. The midfield three doesn't have that with Pellegrini instead of Verratti. Pellegrini is a very different profile to Verratti, which is why I think we could see that second holder come in. Rather than Pellegrini, you go, oh, I keep Barella, of course, he's our best midfielder. But alongside Barella and Jorginho, I need another holder. And Jorginho, especially on the transition, can be quite weak defensively because he does lack pace. He reads the game so well, but pace is something he's not blessed with. So having him alongside a Cristante, who's a bit more destructive, or a Fagioli, who's got that extra bit of guile alongside him, just protects Italy a little bit on the counter-attack. And I think, therefore, we'll see this shape, which I'm really excited about. If we see this shape, the two number 8s, whether it's Frattesi, Pellegrini, Barella, they're going to get opportunities in and around the box because they will be the midfielder that has license to pick up the ball in central areas between the lines. The wing backs are going to get crosses in aplenty for Scamacca, who's like 6'4" and good in the air. Got a brilliant first touch as well to bring others into play. Chiesa's going to have joy playing off Scamacca. So it's an exciting shape, I think, for Italy going into the Euros. I just hope it works versus Albania, because if it doesn't, then Spalletti could very easily change it back to a 4-3-3, because that is his default setting. He's always played that, but he looks at this team and the skill set of these players and the Inter Milan influence, and he goes, probably got to go with wing backs. And fair play. He's done it so far. Let's hope he sets up the way he did against Bosnia, against Albania. Guys, if you've enjoyed this video, please do hit that like button and subscribe. If you've got any fantasy-related questions or Italy-related questions, drop them in the comments. I will be live on Friday on this channel. I'm not sure what time yet. Probably around lunchtime, so keep your eyes peeled for that. We'll do a bit of a deadline stream, lock-in, but also a Q&A. Guys, thank you for watching. On your way out, please do consider hitting that subscribe button, and I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.